Well, the battle for parental rights continues when it comes to parents who have had enough of the pride politicization taking place in schools. And today I have a story of a legal matter related to this woman beside me's fight about just that.
Governmental and special interest flags create segregation, discrimination, and discontent.
Once again, that was a point of
and
order.
When
You
they
can
are
sit down now, please. Thank
in
you.
government.
So I was cut off 4 times, and at the end it never even got on to it because I said that they were special interest group, and they say they're not a special interest group, but they are.
Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, and standing beside me is Lynda di Armani. I just love her name, but I don't love how you were treated by the Chilliwack School Board. Thanks for being on Rebel News.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Now, those of you who have been following our coverage at stopclassroomgrooming.com may have seen some of my reports about the oh-so-controversial Chilliwack School Board. This has been going on for years, especially when it comes to the situation surrounding SOGI 123, which in Western Canada is our sexual orientation gender identity program that is infused throughout the school system. It encourages educators to do things like affirm gender confusion or use sexually explicit books like you're seeing on the screen as learning resources and more. So you can imagine many parents are upset. But something else that's really funky that happens in the Chilliwack School Board is that the board itself takes on this arbitrary role and has silenced parents on multiple occasions for trying to speak. Let's take a look at what happened to Lynda beside me, a grandmother and former school employee who's now suing the Chilliwack School Board for silencing her in a meeting back in June.
My name is Lynda di Armani, and I'd like to speak to item 5.3 on the agenda. School Policy 131, Conflict of Interest, states a trustee must never use their position for personal benefit. Terry Westerby wants to bring forward a motion to put a new flagpole to fly the pride flag for the month of June. As a director,
excuse me, point of order has been called. What's your point of order?
This speaker's question is discriminatory towards a member of our board. Point of order.
Sorry, we don't call out individual trustees by name, and it's not a conflict of interest. There's no pecuniary conflict of interest. Sorry, you can speak to your own feelings about pride if you want to, but if you're going to continue to call out one of our individual trustees by name, you'll have to have a seat. So do you want to speak to the idea of having a board pride statement? You're more than welcome to continue.
I would like to ask that.
You'd have to press your button again.
Are there members of this society, of the trustees that are members of the Pride Society? Because it makes them into a conflict of interest to...
Sorry, a point of order has been called.
The speaker is not correct. It is not a conflict of interest when we are talking about a human right.
Thank you.
We are talking about human right. There is not a conflict of interest in human rights.
Yeah. Sorry, the point of order is upheld. You do not have a point, there's no conflict of interest when you're talking about basic human rights. Thank you very much.
Raising flags of special interest groups is a violation of the date of this of the duty of the state of neutrality as in section 15.1 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms,
point of order
and upheld by the Supreme Court.
Sorry, can you trust?
Basic human rights include reflection of basic human rights, and I don't feel there isn't a point to what you're saying.
Well, we need to listen to the whole thing.
I'm going to uphold the point of order. So it gay people and queer people are not a special interest. They're members of our society. Thank you.
Non-governmental and special interest flags create segregation, discrimination, and discontent.
Once again, that was a point of
and
order.
When
You
they
can
are
sit down now, please. Thank you.
So, Lynda, tell us a little bit, because you were experiencing that and you got cut off not once, not twice, but 4 times this has happened to you. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you were simply trying to raise as a citizen in Chilliwack.
Well, first I was trying to raise the conflict of interest, since we had a trustee that was the the director of marketing of the Pride Society bringing forth the motion to raise special interest flags, and especially the Pride flag that he wanted raised for the whole month of June. But I was cut off because they said that it wasn't a conflict of interest. It makes no sense. And then when I brought up the duty of the state to be neutral according to the law case in 2016, they cut me off totally. So I was cut off 4 times. And at the end, it never even got on to it because I said that they were special interest group, and they say they're not a special interest group, but they are because they're political, and actually that's actually what that means. And so they didn't even let me read the legitimate legal Supreme Court case ideas. They cut me off until then I finally had to sit down.
And talk about human rights. What about parents' rights? That's exactly who the school board is supposed to hear from. But the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom has come together to help you fight what's happening. And it's not just happening to you. We've covered it happening to other people by this board. You're being represented by them at no cost to you. And your lawyer on the case is Marty Moore, who we've interviewed before. Tell us what's happening legally in this fight.
We filed a case against the board so that all people can have freedom of speech. He's told me how that when you're there, how to address the board. So to say, your name, how you're connected. And then if they start cutting you off, what part of the bylaw that we're breaking that they can cut us off. So we're standing up and they're standing with us. And I hope that once again, free speech will reign in Canada, or at least in Chilliwack, and hopefully spread to the rest of the country.
Absolutely. That's the bylaw that basically says, what have I done wrong? Why are you stopping me from speaking? We're going to follow this closely because, as we've reported many times at stopclassroomgrooming.com, parental rights battles is a huge growing issue in Canada today. Thanks so much for being on Rebel News. Is there any last words you wanted to add about what you're doing?
We're standing up for parental rights, and we'd like you to donate to JCCF because they're awesome, and they support so many of our freedoms across this country, especially freedom of speech.
If you've had enough of parents being silenced or vilified for simply speaking out against the sexual indoctrination of children in schools, you're going to want to go to our special website called stopclassroomgrooming.com. There, in a matter of seconds, you can sign our petition that we will be delivering to all ministers of education to say enough is enough, leave our kids alone, and get back to teaching academics.